if it's one thing I would say I really, really enjoyed, and I'd do again tomorrow and every other day, was capturing people indicted for war crimes.
Welcome to the podcast where we track down Australian war veterans, have a chat with them, and hear their stories. I'm Alex Lloyd, and this is Life on the Line.
The single greatest sacrifice I've made is my family.
We weren't out there to take country, we were out there to do something. That was our job.
I did feel a lot of regret.
Friends were still getting killed.
It got to the point where, you're going to funerals quite often.
Do I lead under fire?
And that was a heavy responsibility, I guess, on my shoulders that I didn't want to screw up.
You have to be resilient to get a quote.
War itself is horrific. It's a horror story. It should never be dressed up as if it's something glorious.
Not what you can do for yourself, but what can you do for your country.
The volunteer for service was in effect to put your life on the line.
Mark Billy Billingham served for nearly 2 decades in the British Army's Special Air Service, the SAS, serving in countless war zones, winning the Queen's Commendation for Bravery and being awarded the MBE by Her Majesty the Queen. Upon leaving the SAS, he became a bodyguard to Hollywood stars such as Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Sir Michael Caine, Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe. He is now a DS and advisor on the hit TV shows SAS Who Dares Wins in the UK and SAS Australia. Mark, thanks for coming on Life on the Line.
Thank you for the invite. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Mark, let's go back. You had a rather colourful upbringing, shall we say?
Yeah, I was born 65 in the West Midlands into a poor family. I was a middle child of older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister, and from a very, very early age of where I lived, there was a lot of troubles. There was a lot of little gangs, and I got in trouble really from the age of about 9 onwards. And then it went on from there, basically.
Some of that first trouble then saw you getting into juvie court as young as 11. You leave school at 13. And I understand you had a stabbing incident when you were young as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I like I said, I went rogue. I thought the way ahead was to be a name in terms of known for being a fighter or, a sort of person not to sort of reckon with. And I kind of followed that sort of trend, which was obviously wrong. And as you've alluded to there, I left school very early. I didn't leave school, I got thrown out of school, but I never really went back. And then I ended up in a number of fights. And in one particular I got stabbed in the back, basically. And I think that could have possibly really be the main turning point in my life where I realised I've really got to do something super different to get away from this. Otherwise, I'm not going to make it.
That's a few years there of sort of going rogue, as you put it. I mean, what did, say, your parents think about the direction you were taking? Were they concerned about you, or they had enough else on their plate?
No, my parents were brilliant parents. The thing is, they were both very busy. Like I said, we came from a poor family. They were literally back-to-back doing 12-hour shifts through most of the week and the weekends. And I didn't realise till later on, I kind of held things against my father for not being there when I was doing boxing, when I was doing this. And then I realised later on why that was. And it was, as I'm just alluded to there, that they were both very, very busy. And the reason I was away going rogue and sort of getting away with it or doing it was because I was manipulating my parents. I was smart enough to know when I could get away with things, knowing dad wouldn't be there or mum wouldn't be there or whatever it was, So it wasn't they didn't care or they just couldn't control me. When I was kind of playing one off against the other all the time. And yourself, I mean, anybody who's a parent, well, their kids can never be wrong. It's always somebody else's fault, and I knew that. I was playing that, but it was me. I was terrible. I was a bad kid.
But it sounds like you were having, maybe not being stabbed in the back, but it sounds like you were having fun with life as well. But I suppose learning that kind of street smart skills that would serve you later in the army?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw everything outdoors and around me, all the troubles, as a playground. And to be honest, it was my education. I was learning things. I was learning not good things a lot of the time, but some good things as well, how to survive and how to be tough and how to sort of not be wanting everything and just getting on with stuff. And it did. It gave me a great sort of foundation for what was to come later on in life. I was never shy of putting in, the hours work or whatever it may be, or getting stuck in, or being afraid, or being cold, or being wet, or being hungry. I was used to it. I grew up to that. And, a lot of the army sort of life is around deprivation of food, sleep, being cold, being wet, being uncomfortable. So to me, I'd already done the groundwork. So yeah, my growing up actually helped me with my starting my military career, to be honest.
You mentioned that the stabbing was a turning point. I want to come back to that, but another very formative incident that happened around the same time when you were 15 is you almost died by falling into caustic acid.
Yeah, that sort of period where I was trying to sort my life out, I wasn't going back to school. I was actually working in a factory, and it was totally illegal, of course. I was getting paid cash in hand. I was actually earning more money than my mother. I was taking the money home for the family, So, and one particular night, I was working on a night shift, and something went wrong. And for anybody that doesn't know what caustic soda is, basically, I was working in an electroplating factory where you take raw metal and you strip it down using acids, sulfuric acid and caustic soda, and then you turn it all nice and shiny using chrome or zinc or whatever you're going to use. So that's what it was. And I was working a crane one night, and there was only 2 of us on the night shift, and I had a bit of an accident. All the work fell into the caustic soda, and I climbed up onto the vat, which is 6 foot tall, to clear it, and slipped. And at the time, what I remember was there was only me in the factory. The other guy had gone to the toilet or gone somewhere. But for whatever reason, I slipped and I fell into this acid. And because of the pain, it only got as far as my knees. And that's how, to this day, I don't know. I backflipped out of it, so back with the pain. I should have landed on the floor, and I landed into somebody's arms. And it was a guy I was working with. He'd come back, he'd obviously seen what had happened, and it ran me to the tap. And as he got me to the tap, turned the water on, ripped my wellies off, and all the water sort of went inside my skin, and all the layers of skin just fell off my feet. And I was in absolute agony, and then I got took to hospital and taken care of. Where at the hospital, I had to lie and say I'd broke into the factory, blah, 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 because, I'd have got people to sack. And that's what happened. The police came, and for whatever reason, again, I don't know why, it was never really investigated after that. As long as they knew I was okay, I was left alone. But that, again, at that stage, I already had the turning point of the knifing, and I decided I was going to go in the military, and that stopped me going into the military at the time I wanted to go in because of the injuries.
If the injuries weren't so severe and in different circumstances, that might have sent you down the path of gymnast. That backflip sounds very impressive.
I'll tell you what, mate, I've never done one as good since.
So what first drew your interest to the military? You mentioned that stabbing sort of as a turning point made you look for other directions. The acid slowed it down. But what first planted the seed there for you? Is there military history in the family? Or I guess actually for the Aussie listener, I'm half British as well. There's the very strong culture of service in the UK. I think Aussies love their Anzacs, but it's quite a different sort of sense of service, and you're more likely to know someone who's served in the UK. So I'll just, with my own context provided there, what drew you to that lifestyle?
It wasn't so much, my grandfather was in the military, so was my uncles. And we didn't have a massive sort of military background, to be honest. Although my one uncle was in Burma and he got taken prisoner of war. And I never got to talk to him about that. But that wasn't the influence for me to join the military. What was I joined the cadets at a young age. The cadets in the area where my brother took me to, and there was a very influential man there who sort of put me on the road to sort of keep me on the right road for a short period of time as well. But what I noticed was being in the cadets that everything made sense to me. Everything I was learning made sense. I was learning how to save someone's life, doing first aid. I was learning how to do navigation, and I could relate to that. I saw where that fitted into my life, and I didn't see where, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, learning maths, learning technical drawing was going to fit into my life in school. So I thought I graduated towards, or gravitated towards, what I thought could be a good career for me, the military. And so I had that seed sold quite early. And then as I got older, and I realised I've got to make one hell of a change now. After being in trouble with the law, being stabbed, all the rest of it that went with this, I thought, I've got to get out of this. I've got to get out of this lifestyle. 2, I've got to get out of this area, because I've already sown the seed of having a name for fighting and getting in trouble, and all that brought was more trouble. And I had to leave. So the army was my saviour.
Yep, cadets teaches you more practical skills than dissecting Chaucer or Shakespeare. What age are you when you finally walk into the recruiting office to volunteer?
Well, I'd actually got over there around this time before I had the accident, and they basically said to me, right, you can join as a junior leader at 16, because my criminal record on record, finished then. It was 5 years after being 11, you know, just turning 16. And that was the plan. But then obviously I had the accident. So I actually joined. I couldn't go in after the accident. I had to keep going back to the careers centre every couple of weeks to check my injuries and all this sort of stuff, and check my weight, actually, believe it or not. So I eventually joined when I was 17, just 17 and 3 months or something, like 4 months. So I was still a young kid, you know, but felt I wasn't. I felt I was an adult. So.
Check your weight because what, you were under or over?
Under. I'd been boxing quite a lot at lightweight, and what I was told when I went to the careers for the first time, I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And I thought I wanted to go to the Parachute Regiment, and they said to me, look, you're a little bit light. You need to put some weight on. So I started eating as much as I can. My mum got me some stuff called weight gain, and I used to take that all the time, try and put weight on, but I wasn't really putting anything on. So, and it turned out it was false information anyway. So why they even said that, I don't know. But every time I went over, I'd get weighed, check my burns, check my injuries, and, you know, and then eventually got a date to go do the 3-day selection process, and then eventually into the army.
What did your parents think of this after this rather rogue, wayward youth? You're going into a real sort of streamlined, disciplined institution. You're leaving the family home, and are you the only one of your siblings to go into the military? Yeah,
I was. It was a mix. You know, I thought my dad would be doing backflips himself to get rid of me and at least start thinking he's got a chance of putting himself in the right place here. But just before I left, we had a real father-son talk, and it was quite the opposite. But then I realised later on, he did it for a reason. He knew what I was like. His nickname for me was Mad Jack. I was called Mad Jack because I was mad. I was, you know, totally different to the other 4 kids that were siblings. And I was always in trouble, always going there. And to him, he thought the best rocket he could put my ass was to say I'd be a failure, say I wouldn't make it. Because he knew then I'd want to prove him wrong. And it was, that was true. So that's what happened. And I wanted to prove myself I could do something for me and be somebody. I knew then, you know, from that stage of 15 to where I was 17, I'd met a lot of older people, and I always gravitated towards older people all through my life. So I listened to people, and I think I was street smart. I wasn't academic smart, but I was smart enough to realize life's simple. It's one circle of, you know, you start by pissing the bed and shitting the bed and being fed, and you end up back that way if you live long enough. So, and all the lessons in between it, you know, having money, not having money, being in a relationship, being out of a relationship, high lows, high points, low points. So I kind of knew, and, you know, so I thought, right, the military's got to be my thing. And that rocket up the arse is what my dad gave me, was perfect. I thought, here we go, I'm not going back to this.
So you're walking in there with a rocket up your ass, you've got your street smarts, you've got your street fighting experience, your boxing experience. How do you find then the basic training, or whatever the correct terminology is for over there?
Fucking out of my league. I thought I was somebody, you know, I'd been a big fish in a little pond, which I hadn't realised. Then all of a sudden I turn up in Aldershot, home of the Parachute Regiment, home of the Garrison Town, and I'm stood with 70 other people who've joined that day, and I looked down and I was probably the smallest, the skinniest, and I was looking at, you know, big blokes, tattoos, moustaches, and I thought, fuck, what have I done? But they kind of give me that little bit, I've got to prove myself, I'm not going to give up. But more better than that was the people that were teaching me, my instructors, the staff, they'd all literally, it was 1983, so less than 6 months before, they'd all been in war. They'd all been to the Falklands War, you know, Britain at the Falklands War, and they'd been involved in Antoine. So they're experienced people. They knew what they were talking about, you know, they'd seen death, they'd been amongst it, they'd done what every soldier joins to do. So the people talking to me, I knew, weren't bullshitters. These were real men. These are fucking tough. Not people, coward like myself at the time, would fight people and do all this sort of shit. These people were tough guys. And I was like, wolf, I am really out my depth here. And again, I think that was a second rocket I had at my house where I thought, oh, I'm not going to be beaten by this. I've got to be. I want to be like one of them. I want to make something of myself. I really, from the word go, respected him. And I thought, that's what I want. Ed, Eldar, and be somebody. So that was my initial thoughts when I got there. Although I knew it was going to be hard. It was going to be tough, and it was.
I'm sure it was, but you've got this great balance of you're driven, you want to forge something new for yourself, even stuff like the discipline, the ironing, the uniforms, all that stuff. They are throwing challenges at you, trying to make you fail, and you can like all these little things. No, I'm going to overcome that, overcome that, overcome that. But then that's also skills acquisition.
Yeah, I think it was just a bit of an advantage to most people, to be honest, because I'd been to the cadets, and the cadets do set me in good stead. I knew how to wear the uniform. I knew a little bit about weapons. I knew a bit about the very, very, very basics of stuff. So I was kind of one step ahead of most people. So I had that, and I had, the biggest sort of thing in my armory at that time was, I cannot go back to the lifestyle I've had. I have to have this. This is my one and only chance, and I've got to make this happen. So, I was super, super driven, and I'd already had some of the tools I needed to get there, which was, like I say, the lifestyle of being brought up, the cadets, and the wanting it.
So when do you make it into the Parachute Regiment? What's the journey from your first day of training to actually then becoming para-qualified?
It's a six months process. It's broken down into a number of phases. You get taught basic skills and advanced skills. You get pushed through a selection process, which is called P Company, which is 4 or 5 day event of 3 events a day, physical, where you have to reach a certain standard, it's marks out of 10, you have to reach a minimum of 8 on every event to get through it. And very, very few people get through it first time. And then once you've done that, then you go off for a month of parachuting, being thrown out of an airplane, which I'd never even been on an airplane before. First time I've been on an airplane, I got through at the fucking door. I was like, what's going on here? So you got all that training, and then at the end, you just sort of, in all that process as well, you're learning other skills, more medical skills, more communication skills, and doing education, all the stuff I missed out on at school. So when most of the kids, most of the young soldiers were back in the block getting their bed ready and all their equipment ready, I was still doing 2 hours of education of an evening and stuff, because I was so far behind as everybody else, and I had to do it. So it was quite hard for me in that term. But I mean, it was a long old 6 month process, and we started with 70, and by the time we got to the end, 7 of us originals were there, and I was the youngest, the skinniest, and I was there with what was left. So it was an amazing, absolutely amazing journey, and I met some great people in that journey. Still to this day, 40 years on or whatever it is, I don't even know, 30 odd years on, they're still friends. I could talk to any of them and pick up like it was yesterday, even the ones that didn't get all the way through training, as weird as that seems. Every now and again they'll reach out to me on social media, and you could pick up a little bit of a laugh and a joke of what happened back in the day when we were all in the same boat. So yeah, it was an amazing journey. It was a tough journey, and I don't think there was a day went by where, with some of the physical stuff we were doing, I was thinking, geez, I could just pretend to run into a tree, or just pretend I got injured just so I could not do it. But you just, that's the devil and the angel playing with your mind, and you just go, I want this, I'm going to do this. And I did it, and I did pretty well, actually. I finished as the champion recruit, the number 1 recruit from that original 70.
That's a pretty steep attrition rate. I mean, that could give you that sense of pride and accomplishment, making it through that cut on its own, but then also to be the number 1 recruit coming from where you came from. That must have invigorated you with this sense of purpose, drive. Yes, you fulfilled the potential of those rockets up your ass, and now you are here in this career. Yes, this is mine. Let's go see what I can make of it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of it, I kind of felt so proud, and so, because I didn't know if I could do it. I really wanted to do it, and I did it, and I did it with style. But then I think, I was pretty smart, to be honest, in many ways, because I knew, all right, I've done this. I'm now going to join a battalion. The battalions are like 600 men of blokes that, again, have all been to war. They've all seen it. They've all done it. So I knew I weren't starting in a better position than anybody else just getting there. I knew I was going right to the bottom of the pile again. But I was kind of excited by it, So it was a great feeling to know. And my battalion, when I joined it, was already abroad. They were in Belize in Central America. And I'd never been out of Walsall, really, where I grew up. So, like I said, the first time I'd actually seen a plane, I was being shown around and then getting thrown out the door. The next time I see another country, I'm stepping off into a jungle. I was like, wow, what the hell? So it was all a massive, massive learning curve for me, but a fantastic time.
And you say others there have just been to war. So this would be 1983, year after the Falklands?
Yeah, right after the Falklands, yeah. So I passed out in the early February, March 84. So the back end of 83 was all my training, and into 84. So it was less than a year and a half after the Falklands War. So all the people there, been and done it. So I was right, a nobody, complete nobody. They were all sort of tight as two coats of paint. They've all been together, and now here comes this gobby little mouthy sprog from the West Midlands who's, not proven himself yet. So it was a difficult time. It was a tough old time.
Well, you keep growing to be the big fish in the smaller pond, and then you find yourself the small fish in the bigger pond again. It's good to keep challenging you and making you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, before I went up to the battalion, joined the battalion, I remember, because for 6 months now, all through training, as anybody who's been through training knows, you get screamed, shouted at, and pushed from pillar to post. And there's reasons for that. At the time, you don't see any reason other than you feel like you're being picked on or bullied, but it's not. It's conditioning you for what's coming. And then at the end of that training, just before I joined my battalion, I met one of the guys who'd done exactly what I was talking about, been to war and all the rest of it. He sat me down and chatted to me. He says, "You're joining the battalion." And he gave me a real good, not just me, the other three guys that went with me to the battalion, and gave us a real talk of what life would be like and what to look out for. And it was probably the best advice that I've ever, really, especially if you're stepping into this new world,
You mentioned being thrown out of a plane. A lot of Aussies would have first met you on the first episode of SAS Australia, where you guys were pushing some of our celebrities out of a helicopter into a lake. And that was at I've not done that myself, but, a short height compared to what you're jumping out of. What's it like when you are jumping out of a plane that's flying that high above the ground? What's the sensation like?
It's ridiculous, to be honest. The first time you do it, parachuting, you've got this thing on your back, and it weighs a ton anyway. You got a reserve on the front that weighs another frigging load of weight, and you kind of focus on standing up properly and getting to the door, and then you look out the door and you think, hang on a minute, this is a perfectly serviceable aircraft. Why the fuck am I throwing myself out of it? And you ask yourself that question, and a lot of people say every jump I've done is a night jump because I just close my eyes and go for it. I don't. I actually love the fear, and anybody who tells you they're not nervous or have a little bit of fear are liars. Everybody does, even people who've done thousands, because there's always something that possibly can go wrong, And the chances are pretty slim, but you don't realise that when you stood there with the door open and the jets screaming past, and, you're going to go into this jet stream and spat out the other end of it. But then it's all exhilarating, you just go. You just think to yourself, this could go wrong. I could probably die. But for whatever reason, you're going to go anyway. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going. I'm following that guy in front of me, or the guy behind me wants me to go, I'm going. And you just go. You just believe in yourself. You believe in what you're doing, and boom, out you go. And it is, the canopy opens underneath you and you're looking down, and it's just brilliant. It's just amazing. You just see watching this, everything from such a wonderful view. And then before you know it, before you can really think too much about it, you're coming in for a landing, and it's just like, it's almost like you get that ground rush. Everything's rushing out your knee. In the last 3 or 4 seconds, you're like, feet knees together, get my elbows in, trying to carry out all these drills, and bang. So, you just mentioned there, I went from being thrown out of a plane, and now I'm throwing some of your celebs out there. So it's fucking payback time now. I love it. It's great.
Too right. You've done it, so they should do it too. It's interesting, though, because when the average person thinks of the risk soldiers face, they're going to often think of something like a gunfight or the danger of an IED. But when we're talking about real top-tier regiments like the Paras or special forces like the SAS, Brits or Aussies, the training is really top tier. It's realistic, as it has to be, and it's also dangerous. And that risk of injury or death in training is very real too, and often I feel actually left out of the conversation.
It's. I'll tell you what, mate. I'm glad you alluded to this, because it's something we've been talking about recently. Is we lose more people getting ready for war than we probably do in war, and because we train so hard, we push the limits, and what you do is frightening. It's dangerous, and even when you're going in on operations, of course, the crux of the operation is dangerous. You're possibly you're in for a gunfight, probably you're in for against suicide bombers. So that's coming, and you kind of muscle memory know roughly what you're going to do or what you need to be doing. But then you've got to get there, whether it's coming from the sky. You're falling from the sky, pitch black at night with all your equipment. There's the things that people never really talk about. And they're the danger points. getting down onto the ground and then getting from A to B, whether it's through a ravine, over another mountain or whatever it is, that's enough. That scares the life out of you before you even get to the gunfight. You know, the gunfight's a bit that people sort of talk about more, but getting there and then getting out, it's just as bad when the helicopters are coming in or wherever it is in the, you know, you've got 3 or 4 helicopters landing in the pitch dark and there's dust everywhere. They can hardly see each other. There's bodies all over the place. It's totally seems like chaos. Then they're lifting off and taking off. And we have many times helicopters clip each other or the helicopter gets shot out of the sky and all this sort of stuff, all these dangers that we never really talk about. But it is. It's literally from stepping out the door onwards to stepping back in the door is that your life's in the hands of the gods. You hope for the best and you just get on with it.
You face those man-made dangers, but you can also face natural dangers. How did you find your first experiences in the jungle training?
I've never seen anything but Tarzan before, so I was expecting elephants and I hadn't, I didn't know what to expect. And then the first time, you land in the jungle, it's petrifying. It's frigging claustrophobic. You don't realise you can't see more than 2. If somebody walks in front of you 10 metres, you've lost them. If you haven't had visual of them in that 10 metres, you'll lose them because it's so, claustrophobic and closes around you. So that the visual is difficult. Then the heat's 90% heat. It's like being in a sauna with a house on your back, sweating like a lunatic, and somebody smacking you in the face every 2 seconds with sticks because you're just like getting beaten by all the foliage. And then on top of that, you've got spiders, you've got snakes, you've got whatever else is out there. It's all out there and will take a chunk of you. It is. It's horrendous. It's petrifying. And then what no one really ever talks about is the noise. When you land in the jungle, it's deafening. Because every little creature out there is telling all the rest of the creatures something's in their area. And you just hear these beetles squeaking and it's never talked about. And you're like, geez, what the hell is that? But then after a period of time, let's just say, 3 or 4 days, you kind of settle down and settle into it. And a little bit longer after that, it actually becomes therapeutic. You get used to it and you love it. It's like listening to car alarms going off in the jungle because of some of these strange noises. But yeah, there's a lot of natural dangers there. Then, you've got the ravines that you can slip into. You've got the rivers which flash flood. And you can literally be sort of bashed up, what they call bashed, hammocked up that night, and within sort of an hour with the rainfall, the tropical rainfall, you could be being swept off down the river. And there's all these sort of problems. Then one of the other things that no one ever talks about is deadfall. Some of these trees in the jungle are like 200 feet high plus 200 years old. And over the years, they just fill up with water, and once they die, they're full of water. So it's like a frigging tower block falling down when they fall. And when that comes down in the jungle, and generally it's at night, so you have no idea where it's coming from, and we've had people caught up in that and killed under it. And it happens. And when that goes off, it's like a bomb going off in the jungle. So there's all these natural disasters that we never even think about. All we ever think about is the enemy and a gun. Somebody's going to try and shoot us or, blow us up. You've got all these natural things to deal with. But it's actually quite exciting at the same time, when you learn all these drills and skills to avoid the dangers. And generally with nature, a spider won't bite you or a snake won't bite you unless you're pissing around with it. 90% of people that get bitten because they're messing around with shit, leave it alone, and they'll leave you alone. There is a few percent that will be territorial and take a bite of you in the night, but very few really. So, but there are, back to your question, there's a lot of dangers there.
We'll get to it later, but you end up in mountain troop in the SAS, but right now you're with the Parachute Regiments and you serve in a huge range of environments worldwide. Do you have like a favorite kind of environment or area you've operated in? Yeah,
I love the jungle. It was my first time away from home.
After that description, you love the jungle.
I did. That's what I'm saying. After a period of time, I settled into it. And what a lot of people hate about the jungle is because it's dirty. You're sweating all the time. You've got leeches around your neck and in between your legs and everywhere. And you've got ticks and you've got all this shit. But I just loved it. I just got used to it. I love the coolness of the night, the hot in the day, the sweaty, being dirty, soldiering's good, your navigation's got to be spot on, your concentration. I thrived on it. So my favourite environment is the jungle, and I've spent I would say probably 65, 70% of my army career in the jungle.
Well, if you embrace the dirt and the filth, then you just become one with it and you don't have to worry about being filthy because everything is.
And that's what it is. You become one with your environment. You tune, as they say, you see through the trees and you tune into your environment. And a lot of people don't like it. I absolutely love it.
You spent around 9 years with the Parachute Regiment. Is there a particular highlight operationally that you are able to share?
Yeah, I think there's a few, you know. It was, some of them were exercises, but I guess operationally, at the time, Northern Ireland was a hotbed. You know, there was a lot going on with the IRA and Inlet and all the rest of the little breakaway groups. So that was for us, it was a real test as being a soldier to what soldiering was about, staying alive and fighting an enemy, although it's not a conventional enemy. You know, terrorists are cowards in my eyes. They hide behind civilians and they hide in civilians and they don't come out and face you. But it was a great sort of, I say training ground. It was a great sort of ground to learn proper soldiering and be on and do what you've been trained to do. So going to Northern Ireland for the first time was, because people were getting killed. Not that I want anybody to get killed or injured, but this was real now. This was fucking full on. You know, we had, I don't know, 5 or 6 people killed on that tour who were good friends of mine. When that happens and you're like, wow, how am I going to react? No one knows ever going to react to being shot at or being potentially blown up or being involved in a firefight until you've done it. And that I guess, for every soldier wants to know, how am I going to react in war? And you'd be surprised how people do act, you know. You see people around you who talk a lot and have got a lot to say and seem to know a lot, but as soon as, you know, the lead's flying around, they sort of run up their own ass and the quiet guy steps up. And I wanted to know how I would be. So that was my very memorable time for me, being out there, because it was a hotbed. And, you know, personally, I felt I coped well and I did what I was expected to do. So I was out there and there was a lot going on. And so I'd had a taste of battle and conflict. And then we had Cyprus on top of that while I was with the Parachute Regiment. And for everybody, go Cyprus. Whatever happens in Cyprus, Cyprus is a holiday resort. And it is. But when we got there, fucking sod's law, all hell broke loose. The PLO decided to attack. We, you know, rocket launches, they killed people here, we had a lot going on. Cyprus was another operational tour, very, very similar to Northern Ireland at the time. Not as bad, but it was operational. So it was a good grounding experience. And then I had the full career with it. So with the Parachute Regiment, I'd done the training. You know, I'd been to a number of theatres around the world, desert, jungle, European. I'd done a number of operations. I was ready then I had a good foundation then to move to the next level.
We'll move on to that next level very shortly. I guess just looking whether it's those first experiences of the lead flying around you with the IRA or the other operational deployments you've undertaken. Yes, you feel good in how you responded and stepped up to the plate when that action kicked off. But then I guess it's also then processing that once the adrenaline subsides and sort of, you know, you're losing friends. You're confronting the meaning of mortality whilst you have, you know, family back home. And it's not just about yourself and your own life anymore. I guess, how did you find that balance of home life versus professional life?
I tell you what, mate, I mean, everybody deals with this differently and probably has a different way of explaining it. But for me, and looking back on it now, I feel kind of guilty, but I was pretty good at compartmentalizing my life and locking off my family. And at that stage, I had, you know, I had one little daughter, a wife, and my wife was pregnant with a second daughter. So we had, you know, a close little family back there that I did miss. Of course, I missed and I loved to death, but I just shut them out completely and just got on with my operational tour and what I was doing and became very, very selfish, really. You know, I didn't think about them as much. I'd think about them of an evening when I had time to do, you know, when you had 10 minutes to yourself, and then that was it. Shut it off again, off I go again. And I knew there was 2 reasons for that. One, I had to concentrate on what I was doing. I was able to compartmentalize my life, and thereafter, I've done it ever since, you know. And I think it's now the latter part of my life where I feel, you know, you can't get that time back now. But I try to sort of spend as much time as possible with the family and the loved ones. So it was difficult. The answer to that question, it was difficult.
Yet in the professional compartment of your life, you have always sought to challenge yourself, and then you find a way to provide yourself the ultimate challenge in the form of the Special Air Service. And our own SASR is modelled from the British version, and that goes right back to steeped in history, World War II. It is a huge, prideful place of the ultimate level of professionalism, and that's not in a chest thumping kind of way. That's in a, you're surrounded by the best, and you want to live up to that own standard. It's a wonderful goal to chase. I guess what made you finally decide, yes, I want to give the SAS a go, and your journey to selection and what British selection is like? With this podcast, listeners have heard many stories of Aussie selection, but British SAS selection, the Brecon Beacons, and all that's kind of very legendary.
Yeah. I mean, again, the SAS ain't for everybody. I think anybody that's in the infantry side of the military, in the UK especially, should have a go at it, should go for it, because it's a pinnacle of your career. It's like, I kind of explain it as, imagine you turn professional as a footballer and you normally start off in a second division club or a third division club, and you want to be in the Premier League. You don't only want to be in the Premier League, you want to be in the top club of the Premier League. And I'm not a massive football fan right now, but, everybody knows Manchester United or Chelsea. You want to be there with that club. And that's what the SAS is in terms of the military. Although I say that, I always say going from the Parachute Regiment to the SAS was a sideward step. It wasn't a forward step, because there's just as good soldiers in the Parachute Regiment as the SAS. The difference is the SAS work at such a different level. You work at strategic level. And, to be able to work at a level, you have to be something different. And I can say that now because I know, because I've actually been part of the training and I've done all the operational stuff I've done. So I know what I'm talking about. And without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll stand on any stage and I will say the British SAS are by far the best in the world. And I know a lot of us is bullshit, but don't get me wrong. Our brothers in arms, SAS, Australia, New Zealand, they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm saying it because I've been in the British SAS and I've worked with the Aussies, I've worked with the Kiwis, I've worked with most special forces around the world. And, most of the special forces are based off us as well. And I think the reason we are as good as we are is because we're constantly on a war footing, we're constantly in conflict, we're constantly, keeping that sort of skill set evolving and moving because of what we do. But the reason I chose to go there was, one, I wanted to see if I could do it. Again, another challenge in my life, like I did with the Parachute Regiment as a young kid. I wanted to know, am I good enough? I'm not one of those people. And two, I'd got quite a few friends of mine who had gone before me, and they never really told me what they did, but I knew they were doing some great stuff. I thought, I've got to have a piece of this. This is what I want to do. And that was my reason for eventually going. So I did 2 years back at the training school, the depot of the Parachute Regiment, where I started my career. So I'd now give all the skills and information I'd learned over this 7-8 years with the Parachute Regiment back to the young kids coming through. I thought it was time to move now. And then that was my stepping stone after that on to go for the SAS, and that's what I did.
I think we could probably talk for a couple of hours about British SAS selection, but is there a particular highlight, anecdote, or standout memory for you to sort of sum up the intensity of that experience, which I can only imagine, comparing it to Aussie selection stories and how you're positioning British SAS as the best in the world? I'm sure their selection matches up to that promise.
I mean, I'd expect every Aussie to say the same, and Kiwi, anybody who's in their regiment, that's pride, isn't it? I'm saying it because that's what I believe. But if I talk about selection, I ended up as a directing staff on selection as well. So I know I went through all that same phase again. So when I went there, there was I think, don't quote me on the numbers because I'm not 100% sure. There was about 283 of us, I think, that turned up on day one to start this. By day two, 80 of those had gone. 80 had gone on day two. So that gives you an idea of, what the hell is this all about? And it was short, sharp, fast. It was horrendous. It was a crazy train that started at 1,000 miles an hour. You got on it, and if you can stay on it, you'll do all right. Most people couldn't stay on it. So off we went. It's broken down into phases. You've got what we call the hills phase, the mountains, which is, as you've alluded to, Brecon Beacons, the Black Mountains. And, you literally, every single day, the distance increases, the weight increases, the intensity increases, the people fall by the wayside, the numbers get lower, you're still there if you're good enough, blah, blah, blah. You've got to navigate, you've got to carry the weight. And this is the thing that nobody really realizes. The hardest thing on selection is self-motivation. Wanting to do it and do it. Because on SAS selection, you don't get shouted at. Not like you see on the TV. It's nothing like that. It's down to you. It's all down, they ask you. They'll say, right, tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, be on parade with a Bergen that weighs 80 pounds, with your rifle, da-di-da-di-da, that's it. And if you feel, and normally in the normal army, you know, you sergeant majors there or your corporals there go on, get your shit together, let's go, let's get moving. None of that. There's no encouragement, there's no discouragement. So for the first time in your military career, it's down to you now. And some people can't get motivated. And when after day 10, 12, 15, 20 of everyday house on your back, going over the mountains, your legs are aching, your knees are swollen, your back's killing you, you got blisters everywhere. It's easy just to lie in bed and go, fuck that, I'm not doing it. Well, you can. And they don't come in and shout. They go, okay, no worries. Pack your kit. The doctor will see you later. Bye. And you're gone. And for most people, that's what happens to them. They can't motivate themselves, which is weird. Because I remember people when I was going on selection who'd spent 3 months already, their military unit had given 3 months off to train. I never got that in the Parachute Regiment. I didn't get a day off. And they'd be down in the beacons day after day going over the hills that they knew about, some of the routes they knew. And then they were gone on day 2. It was bonkers because they'd psyched themselves out or they just couldn't do it. And then, so that's the first phase. And then this is another thing that I will say, SAS selection is not the hills, which everybody thinks it's about going over the mountain. It's not. We don't even look at people till you get to the jungle. The jungle is SAS selection. And for me, I had a real full sense of security because I'd already by then been to the jungle 3 times, 4 times maybe with the Parachute Regiment and doing all this stuff. So I thought I knew the jungle. I thought I'm happy with the jungle. I'm now acquainted to it. I love it. My God, did I go with the wrong impression? Because it was different with the SAS. You were watched 24 hours a day. You know, the skill sets in there were simple. There was nothing difficult about it. Soldiering was simple. There was nothing special about that. What it was, it's now you're a smaller number and everybody's watched virtually 24 hours a day. This is where the jungle is where they really get to know you because they want to know who you are now. And it's about seeing what you're like, you know, getting up in the morning. Are you a grumpy git? Are you a worker? Are you someone who gets amongst the team? Are you self-motivated? Are you this? They really peel you back. So that's what they're there for, to look into your characteristics. They're not bothered about what you've done in the past or how big you look and how great you look and what you've done and what a great soldier supposedly you are. No, the soldier is basic. It's about you now. Who are you? And that was the difficult bit, keeping that going. Because people do, you know, you'll see a director standing in front of you and the guy then all these weapons in his shoulder now and he's helping everybody else. You can't keep that going for a month. By week 2, the real you comes out. And if you're one of these who can't be asked, just throws your weapon on the floor, throws your Bergen on the floor, plunks his arse down, can't be bothered to motivate, you're already on your way out. But they'll let you keep going all the way to the end, just suffer anyway. And then goodbye. You know, so that was hard. And I remember flying out the jungle and I think I'd lost about 1.5 stone. Not that I had a fucking 1.5 stone to lose anyway. And I'm flying out and I was on the skid of an old scout helicopter flying out, just 2 of us strapped on. And the wind hit me and I was so used to being stinking of piss because the ammonia in your skin, you've got one set of 12 into working all the time, one to keep dry, sleeping. And obviously I got my working stuff and as I was driving out, the ammonia in it, acid in it, I could literally, it was like I'd been stood too close to a fire. I could just crumple it up and it just snapped off. It just dropped off me. And I remember sitting in the helicopter, scraggy beard, like a war victim, thinking, fuck that, I'm never doing that again. I actually didn't care by then whether I had passed or failed. I thought, I'm just glad to get the end of it for me. I mean, of course I wanted to pass, but I was like, there's no way I'm going through that ever again. And all the way through it, my DS, a couple of DS, hardly said a word to me other than, this is your next grid. Away you go. This is what I want you to do. That was it. It was weird. It was like, so everything I did, I thought I did wrong, was amplified and bouncing around my head thinking, oh my God, they've seen that. And a lot of people tie themselves into knots about it instead of going, you know what? We're allowed to drop a bollock. Get on with it.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but then this actually kind of strikes me as a great character test as well, because they want to detect that you are self-motivated, that you will be pulling your own weight, not letting the team down. Because one of the most, again, to my civilian eye, one of the most realistic things I saw in SAS Australia was right at the end where you DS were all discussing, but would I want him in my team? Would I want him in my patrol? And because the patrol is such a small unit, every person is such an important feature of that. You have to trust them all intimately. And so what you're describing sounds like a great yet simple, effective way to test that. Yeah,
absolutely. Mate, you've just hit the nail on there. That's what it all comes down to at the end of the day. Is can I work with that bloke? Could I be in a hole for 10 days, 10 weeks with that guy? Would he be the one when maybe I'm having a bad day, he'll pick the reins and go. And that's what you're looking for. So there's no set template. And you'll get different type of people. So you get the quiet guy, you get the aggressive guy. And there's a place for either one of them, as long as you've got all the rest of the characteristics, the honesty, the integrity, the drive, the self-motivation. If you've got that, it doesn't matter who you are. And the beauty of it is, let's just say, for example, you're on it, I'm your DS, I'm watching you, and you've got most of what you're supposed to have. And I'm like, but I'm thinking, I'd never probably go for a beer with him. He's not a bloke I'd want to go for a beer with. But it's not about that. And I might have a few little derogatory words or something against you, but the next DS will go, well, actually, I took him on the range yesterday, and he's fantastic. It's the fairest system you'll ever see. So it all comes back down to, forget who, certain things, but what has he got the characteristics? Could he be part of that team? And that's what it really does come down to. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. They go, right, yeah, I could have that guy next to me. I know he'd go that little bit further. He'll do what he needs to be doing. And it doesn't matter your size, your shape, or your background. They're like, yep.
Just quickly, you pass selection, you get through, you have that great moment of pride, but then you end up in Mountain Troop, and Mountain Troop's named after there's different methods of insertion. Why did you end up there and not in an air-based insertion method as opposed to climbing over ravines and hills and terrain, considering your background?
Mate, unbelievable, right? So you get to the end of selection, 7 of us are left again out of 283, whatever it is. And they go, right, okay, you get a choice. Where do you want to go? So I said, right, I want to go to D Squadron and I want to go to Air Troop. Natural to me, parachute, blah, blah, blah. That's where I'm going. That's what I want. So, and a few other people wanted whatever they want, boat troop, whatever your preference was. So then they come in and go, okay, yeah, he says, looks like you'll get what you want. It's all right. Billingham, you're going to B Squadron, not D. I went, right, okay, you're going to Mountain Troop. And I thought, fuck, I've never climbed anything but stairs in my life. Why am I going to Mountain Troop? So now all of a sudden, I'm in this squadron I didn't really want initially, but I'm so glad it was because it is the best squadron. And then I'm in Mountain Troop, and I'm like, then in about 3 weeks, I'm hanging off a 4,000 foot in the Alps, fucking rock face by 2 fingers, and I'm learning all these new skills. So it was completely new to me, alien to me, but I'll tell you what, I loved it. And I call it Man's Troop. Of all the 4 troops there is, without a doubt, there'll be blokes out there that are going Air Troop and Boat Troop. Bullshit. Mountain Troop is Man's Troop. You're up there, you're up above the snow line, below the snow line. It's dangerous, it's scary, but it's brilliant. And a lot of the world is covered in mountains, so most of the time you'll be taking the lead on operations. That's my explanation anyway.
You spend almost 2 decades with the SAS, which is an amazing amount of time of service. And yes, there are some action-packed stories we could dive into from your time there, like the time you were a sniper base, which you get your commendation for, the hostage rescue work you do, that one of which gets you your MBE. You do some other quite interesting things, like indicting criminals for war crimes. You're the ground commander during the London 2005 terror attacks. You've had a huge service history, and I'm happy to dive into any of those points there that you want to talk about more on. But I guess what motivates you to just keep putting the uniform on day after day? What keeps you motivated to keep giving what is you described selection as a crazy train. I can only imagine serving in the regiment is a crazy train. What keeps you going back there year after year for so long?
I'll tell you, mate, honestly, and without trying to be cliche, making a difference. You realise what we do makes a fucking difference, a massive difference. And a lot of the differences we've done and changed in the world, we changed world policy, we changed direction for countries, we changed and I'll tell you what, the key thing to all of that, we save a lot of lives. We make the world a better place. And that's what it is. I hate people when they describe it, yeah, but you're a trained killer. And we're not a fucking trained killer. We're trained to deal with situations that are horrendous, that may lead to somebody being killed or killing someone. Yeah, we are, but no different to anybody else. Our main job is to carry out policy and change for the good. It's not all war and conflict. Some of it's been natural disaster stuff that I've been involved in. And it's amazing what we do. And, if I want to talk about I've done some amazing stuff. I was very fortunate for being in the regiment. I think the only war I really missed was 2000 so it was the Falklands 1982. Thereafter, all through Europe, Africa, Middle East, I was there. Whether that's fortunate or unfortunate, it depends how you want to look at it. But I had it all. I had hostage release, terrorist kit, fighting in trenches. I've done it. I've been fortunate to do it all, and I did because of the way the world was and is. So of all the stuff that I've done, I've got to be careful about what I do talk about. But you talk about prison. If it's one thing I would say I really, really enjoyed, and I'd do again tomorrow and every other day, was capturing people indicted for war crimes. In my eyes, fucking scumbags. People who, run concentration camps, killing civilians. People who, in every war, you'll get an element of lunatics who have the opportunity to run wild because they think they can. And Bosnia was a massive example of that. And that was a massive eye-opener to me of how evil people can be. So at the end of the war, our tasks were to go and get these fuckers. And it was, tell you what, it was a pleasure capturing these scumbags and watching them cower and shit their pants and literally piss themselves when they get caught. The ones that did get caught, if they weren't killed in a firefight. The gutless people that were. So that, of all the jobs that, and I've done some brilliant jobs, and people go, well, that's nothing compared to you did this, you did that. But to me, ridding the world of that lot was fantastic. So, and it goes back to, the regiment and what he does, and like SAS are do. And we changed policy, mate, and it's for the right reason, helping people all around the globe and making the place a safe. And even on the home fronts, there's a lot you'll never even know about and you don't need to know about. You probably never go to bed. Be shitting yourself. But I mean, what the regiment does is it's phenomenal. This new world opens, and wow, you're like, whoa. And you're making part of that decision of changing it. You are the eyes and ears to not just your government, to the world, And that sounds really, what are you talking about? I'm telling you. Some of the things I've done and said and had to say and do, you're like, I look back at it now and I laugh to myself. I mean, fucking hell. I left school, I had no education. I'm telling now which way UK is going to go and how that's going to affect our economy and our deployment and all the rest of it. So it's such a great pleasure to be in that position. But you soon wise up and realise this is real. This shit is real.
That's a really meaningful answer, and the passion for the work you've done and the difference you've made, that in itself is very inspiring. So thank you for your service in that regard alone. There's dozens more, take that back, Official Secrets Act and all that. There's not many stories you can share. Those that are more on the public record, we could spend another hour or two talking about, but besides your precious time, we want people to actually turn up to some live shows you're doing, which we'll plug bit further into the episode. You step out of the regiment after many years of service, and I want to quickly sort of cover your career in between to what you're doing today. You have spent decades avoiding being seen. What you do is secret. You can't talk about it, all that stuff. Then you end up bodyguarding celebrities, I mentioned at the very start of the episode, and you've, going with our absolute A-listers, to now being in front of the camera. You've been in front of the camera for films as well as the TV shows I've mentioned. Like, just what's a quick overview of how all that came about and how you feel now being in the spotlight? No camo. It's just everyone knows your name and face.
It's absolutely, a 180 of my life. It was ridiculous because you're right. I spent all my military career trying to get into the SAS and then the rest of my life denying it, like we do. Then all of a sudden I had to leave. I'd done, I always say 27 years. I actually did about 30 odd years because I full-time jumping through windows, kicking, all that sort of stuff was 27 years. Then I did I didn't actually leave officially till 2015. I stayed on as a reserve. Anyway, I'll jump forward from that. So when it came to the leaving, I needed a job. And at the time, there was some stuff going on, and I thought, do I want to do that? Do I not want to do that? But I'd already moonlighted and did a little bit of bodyguard job work anyway. And I thought, yeah, this is all right. All the skill sets I've learned in the regiment, I can adapt to what this new sort type of work I could do. And then the job came up to take over as, head of security, or not head of security initially, but part of the security for a couple of A-lists. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, I can do that. And the job was there. The pay was good. The work was what I liked. But the downside to it was, that exactly the opposite to what I've had. Now all of a sudden, I'm most likely going to be in the spotlight. But I had to make a choice. What do I do? Or do I just wait for another job as a civilian contractor back in Iraq, where, yeah, the money was great, but you didn't have the support. It was fucking more dangerous. And I was tired of, shitting in a hole in the ground and living off a fucking generator. I thought I want a normal life for a bit. So I decided I was going to do the celebrity security, and that's what I did. And it was awkward. It was bizarre because all of a sudden, you can't hide. You've got to be next to these people. And these people are being photographed left, right, and Chelsea 24 hours a day. So I just went from, and it was awkward. It felt really uncomfortable, and I didn't know how. I struggled with it a wee bit, to be honest. And the thing was, I never spoke about who I was, what I was. Of course, the press make massive speculation. The new bodyguard, he's MI5, he's SAS, he's whatever he is, And I just never really talked about it and all the rest. And they sort of delve into and try and get information. Some of it was accurate, some of it was absolute bullshit. And yeah, so this new world out opened up, and I was like, wow. But then after a period of time, and I'll talk about this at my shows, and I'll go into a bit more depth about it, I realised a lot of people out there doing all these, I'll call them top jobs, really, because they are top jobs. You're getting paid a lot of money and you've got a lot of responsibility, really. A lot of people I was hearing were all SAS and special forces and I'm thinking, oh, he looks the same age as me. I know everybody in the SAS. The SAS is tiny. Maximum there's about 130 of us at any time. I know from back in the days of David Still, because it's such a small community and we all know each other. And I thought, I don't recognise any of these people. And I realised quickly a lot of fucking idiots out there have been telling people they're SAS and living off the back of it. And I thought, so I had to admit who I was. Yeah, I am SAS. And I felt awkward saying it. And it was really weird. But I thought I had to say it because all of a sudden people were getting all these jobs and I weren't getting work and this and the other and didn't have the credibility I thought I should have had for what I was doing. And all these lunatics who'd done nothing and were living on the back of it. So I said, yeah, when I met people after that, I did make a big song and dance with. Yes, I am SAS. With that comes obviously a consequence that, well, firstly, in the public eye, people want to know who you are. People start to put two and two together. Now I've admitted to it because I felt I had to. I have to take the risk on the security side of that, and I do. I have I've got countermeasures and all that sort of stuff to deal with that. I had to take that risk, but I had to work and I had to do what I had to do. So, I weighed everything up, and it was the right thing for me to do at the time. And I'd already stepped into the limelight, so I couldn't really just disappear doing what I was doing, and that was my life. That was my job. So awkward, very awkward, and But then, as time's gone by, again, I don't know how much time we got, but I went from being this side of the camera, protecting people, to ending up that side of the camera. But I'll tell you right now, I embrace it now. I love it. It gives me a platform, and I love doing what I do. And I ain't saying this because I want to say it. I fucking love it, helping people. And I've got a charity out in Haiti, which I've had for 10 years, nothing to do with this celebrity shit that I've got now. I've already had that for 10 years, and now I can do so much good for so many people, and it's fucking brilliant. And I love it, and I'll continue to do it as much as I can.
I do want to ask you more about the live shows, but tell me more about the charity work. I'd love to hear more about your philanthropic efforts.
Yeah, I'm massive on charity, mate. I'll do anything for charity, to be honest, to a degree. And because I realised my background and what I came through, and when people come to my show, you'll see why I did do it, because people gave me a chance who shouldn't have given me a chance because I'm a fucking horrible little shit. So I realised, and now when I talk about in my book and where my life started, I call it the man with the hat. The man with the hat was an old man who gave me a chance, who should never have given me a chance. I'm now that man now. I'm him. So I love doing the charity work. I'm an ambassador to a veteran charity, Phoenix Heroes, which is brilliant, getting people veterans off the street. Fucking veterans should never be on the street anyway. Veterans off the street, back into a home, but into work. It's sustainable. It's not just a bit of work here and there. It's all sustainable. It's a turnkey solution to getting them back on the feet properly. So I work with them. My main charity is Rebuild Globally, which is working with kids out in Haiti, giving kids education. No kid on this fucking planet should be without education. How the hell this is happening, I don't even know. We've got so many billionaires, yet we can't even get fucking kids into school. So I'm going off at a tangent as I do. Yeah, that's what I do. I put kids. Me and the wife, we've got a charity and a for-profit company. So what happens is take these kids, and these kids are street kids. Take them off the street. I put them through school, pay for all their schooling and the clothing, all this sort of stuff, and they've got they've got nothing else. But if they stay in the school program, it's a proper school program. If they stay with it, they get their education, they get the tick in the box, then they go into a roughly about a year's job training that includes driving, learning how to sew, learning how to use machinery, and then if they stick with that, then they get a job. My wife runs the job side of it, and so it's turnkey. It's ending poverty, giving them dignity, because that's what it's all about. You like me, we're all charitable to a degree, but we've all done the putting money in a bucket. Never really follow up where it goes. But if you follow some of that up, especially with the big companies that everybody thinks are doing great, 90% of that money gets squandered somewhere else. It doesn't go to where he wants to go. So I'm deep into I watch every penny where it goes when I'm with my charity. And anybody who supports my charity can do exactly the same. It's 100% transparent. What you put into that charity goes to that charity. Helps that kid, helps that family, or whatever it does, in the right way. None of it goes towards the admin staff. None of it goes towards that. There are certain things we have to do. That's why we have the for-profit, the profits from the things that we make and do, which is, fashion, flip-flops to ladies' earrings and bags and all this stuff, which are quality. Part of that pays for our staff, So that's how that all works out. So yeah, I'm deep into it because everybody needs an hand up at some stage, all of us. So I'm very passionate about charity.
No, that's deeply commendable, mate, especially looking back to your background and the circumstances you grow up. I can see you now, yes, embracing the fact you're the man in the hat and want to help people in those dire need of circumstances, especially, say, veterans on the street. You'd have a real calling there. But you also have this calling you alluded to of just, wanting to help people in more ordinary circumstances, like these live shows you're doing, which I want to hear all the details about. Let's plug it. That's not just about, oh yeah, I'm getting on stage, I'm having my time in the spotlight. That is, you want to meet and talk to people and help them and give them some guidance, some inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, funny you should ask, how this came about was for charity. I got asked, will you do this event for charity for kids who'd lost their parents back in Herefordshire where I live? And yeah, of course I will. And what do you want me to do? And he says, oh, will you just come and meet a bunch of people and just talk for a bit? And I thought, oh, yeah, no worries. And then on the morning of that day, my wife said to me, what are you going to talk about? I went, I don't know. I'll just see what they want to ask me. She says, no, you've got to have a structure. So we put these very basic structures together, and I was expecting 30 people to turn up. So I turned up to this place in Hereford, and actually Foxy, one of the lads on the show, for the people that don't know, I'll give him a shout. I said, hey, mate, do you want to come down and meet some people? And he goes, yeah, I'll come down. And Ollie came down as well. And he goes, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know, really. I'm just going to go on stage and I'll call you guys up later and we'll do some Q&A. And so I went out there anyway, and I did this bit of a talk. My missus went, stop, have some logic to this, and put some pictures up and a thing. And I did it, and I was expecting 30 people. I walked out there, there's 300 frigging people. I was like, shit my pants. I went, what the hell? And I just talked about what I talk about, but, in basic terms. And it went really, really well. And I raised a lot of money for these kids. And I thought, I fucking love this. This is what I want to do. So then a friend, somebody in the audience who's now a friend and now a business partner, says, hey, mate, if I put the show together for you, would you do it more? And I didn't want to do it. I said, I don't mind doing the odd one or two for charity, but not really. But anyway, long story short, I ended up doing it. And it grew on me, and I started to enjoy it. Because a massive percentage, I do my talk, and it always finishes off with a charity work. And I get a lot of people to support the charity, and I'll normally have a stand there with all the items that these young kids that have gone through education and have made. And it's brilliant. People buy that, and that all goes back to 80. So I've loved it, and it's grown and grown and grown. And the other thing of it is, people say to me, what's the talk about? And I won't go into too deep here. And I'm thinking, I don't really know. What is it? Motivation? Is it inspiration? And I had to say, you tell me what it's about at the end. But I'll tell you something from it is every single person, from the 9-year-old kid that sometimes come to the 80, 90-year-old person, walk away inspired in one way or another and go, wow. And I love that. I always look in the audience. I'm always in it with an old couple, and I'm kind of look at their eyes, see if are they smiling when I'm supposed to try to make them laugh. And generally they're not. And I'm thinking, oh, fuck, this ain't going too well. And every time I've come off stage, and I've had it, and it's amazing. Some old guy of 80, 90 goes, that's the most inspiring talk I've ever had. And I'm like, what? Why? And then he'll tell me, he goes, I could relate to this, and then the young kids and the parents go, wow, that was great. I related to all what you went through at school and you're growing up, and I didn't realise about this and I didn't realise about that. So I'm not there, look at me, I'm an SAS guy and I've done this. I don't do any of that. I don't do none of this quotes bullshit and take a bite of the earth, make it yours. What the fuck does that mean? I hate all that shit and statistics and negative to positive and da. Well, hang on, give an example of what you're talking about. Because it sounds good, but what does it mean? I'll tell you a story, and I'll tell it warts and all. It's my trials. I ain't proud of most of it, but I'll tell it because I realised it took me to that point to realise, stop that shit. That's all wrong. And if I can pass that on to a kid now, and he can cut that distance in half of being bad and doing the wrong thing, then I've done a good thing in my eyes. So that's what it's about, to be honest.
Well, mate, you are very grounded and you're very passionate. I can see that being inspiring for a lot of people. I've just loved talking with you today, for example. When and where are these talks happening?
So Friday night, I'm just up the road here at the Recital Hall.
In Sydney.
Anybody? Do you know it?
Yeah, we're talking about Friday night in Sydney. Yep.
Sydney, yeah, in Sydney. And then on the 9th, which is, I think is on a Sunday night. It's Mother's Day, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm in Brisbane at Trevoli. And then on the 10th, I'm in Melbourne.
Right, so Brizzy people, take your mum out to see Billy for Mother's Day. Great Mother's Day present, especially if you haven't got something yet. What more could you want? Sydney Friday night and Monday in Melbourne. All the details will be on your social media, and that is Billingham22B on Instagram.
Yeah, and you'll get a special, you'll get a few extras as well, because I think the one in Sydney, the lads might come along to it as well, Foxy Ollie and maybe. There'll also be a bunch of celebs who've been, on the show or been, in contact with us. So there'll be some special guests. In fact, at every one of the venues there will be. So you get a little bit more than you bargained for.
Well, if you're going and you've listened to my chat with Billy today, be sure to ask him, so why were you screaming at them on TV when he was just saying that he wasn't screamed at when he did SAS Selection?
I'll answer that right now for you, because being quiet on TV is not good TV.
Mate, it's been a pleasure chatting today. Thank you so much for your time.
And likewise. Thanks a lot.
I'm Alex Lloyd, and you've been listening to Life on the Line. You can find us at Life on the Line Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, at LOTL Pod on Twitter, at Thistle Productions on LinkedIn, and our website is www.lifeonthelinepodcast.com. Life on the Line is brought to you by Thistle Productions, artwork by Big Cat Design, music by Dad Van Werkhoven. Thank you for listening, and lest we forget.